Obstetrics and Gynecology.
And where's your office?
Glasgow OBGYN specialist across from the hospital.
And how long you been here as a doctor?
I started here last August.
Recently you have returned from China.
Yes, sir.
When did you leave for China and how long were you there and when did you get back?
I left at the end of September and came back the beginning of October, and I was there for about 9 days.
Did you go individually or in a group?
No, my dad and I went together. We did it as just a little family thing, just some male bonding, I guess.
So it was just you two and you all...
Oh, we joined a group when we got there. It was a tour group when we got there.
I see.
But yeah, nobody else went with us from this area.
How long did it take you to get there, and from where did you leave, and your destination, and so forth?
Well, we drove down to Nashville and drove. Then early in the morning, the next day, we got on the plane flew to Chicago, and then from Chicago, we flew straight over to Beijing. The way we did it was interesting. We flew up over Canada, over the Arctic Circle, over Siberia, down into China. It took about 13 hours.
You anticipated me. I was going to ask you the length of the flight. That's a pretty good length of time to be on a plane, though. I was on one to Australia once, 14 hours. So
yeah, it was a long time.
So just you and your father, and then you joined a group in China.
Yes, sir.
Now, what was the first city that you arrived in China? Well,
we arrived into Beijing, and Beijing is pretty much the hubbub of where everybody starts off, I believe. And of course, it's the capital of China, and that's where we started off.
How did you find the people insofar as being sociable and acceptable?
That was one of the interesting things about being in China. When we went to Tiananmen Square, there were people from all over China coming into Beijing, because a lot of them go in there to see Tiananmen Square, see where Mao Zedong was, and visit him. So they're from the provinces. And so if you didn't see a whole lot of other people. So you see some German, some French, maybe like a group of Americans. And our group was about 20. But it was cute. They would come up to our group and have pictures taken in front of us, like they'd never seen a person from the United States before. Because, for example, I don't look like anybody. Of course, there I'm tall and skinny and I have this real white skin and green eyes, and they would take pictures right in front of me, so I'd sort of be in it. So it was sort of neat to see how they were. But all in all, they were extremely polite and very quiet.
Well, I'm assuming you had a translator.
Yeah, we had a guide, and she wasn't from Beijing originally. She'd moved from a smaller city. Her parents were very educated, and during the Cultural Revolution, they had been moved out into a smaller area. So for the control they wanted at that time.
Well, did the public generally have questions for you?
No, not really. She'd been a guide for 2 to 3 years, so she knew what to expect, and I think she actually had a boyfriend in America, so she knew a lot of things. Mostly, we would ask her a ton of questions about her culture, and people would ask her questions were rather inappropriate. They'd ask her how many kids she'd want to have, and when she was going to get married, and stuff like that, and why she wasn't married yet, and questions like that. But everybody wanted to know this other information from her.
But the public generally, I mean the Chinese public, did they have any questions for you?
No,
through the translator?
No, sir, not really. I think in the last 10 years they've had so many changes that I don't think it was much of a shock to them. But nobody had ever come up to us and asked us questions.
Well, did you ask any questions of them or any people in the group?
I would ask our guide questions about the area and what people did and what kind and those things and what her friends would do and what kind of education they would get.
But again, it was strictly the translator, not.
The way I understood it, Mr. Barrickman, is people weren't really exposed to come up to us and talk to us. You get that when the whole time you get there, you know, you're on a tour, but you're always directed. You know, every time we went shopping or something, it was to a state-controlled place. You know, we couldn't talk to certain people. She said she could talk about things with us, but most people wouldn't come up to us and ask us questions. It was, you know, it was probably frowned upon. You know, they've opened their country up for commercialism and capitalism, but it's still a strongly communist country, and it's obvious when you get there.
Well, that's what I was interested in, is whether or not things have become more liberal and more democratic.
In some ways, but some ways they're still very, very communist.
How many different cities did you visit while you were there?
We visited 4. The first place we went was, of course, Beijing. Then we went to a town called Xi'an. That's where the terracotta warriors are. Then we went to another smaller town called Guilin, and that's where these special mountains are, where they take pictures of them all the time to put on their currency and things like that. Then we ended up in Shanghai.
So you didn't go to I forget the name of the city, the main industrial city now of China. I forget the name of it.
You mean Shanghai might be where you're talking about, because in the last 10 years, Shanghai has totally changed. They've made it's one of the cities that they're using as a comparison to Hong Kong. The commercialism there is huge. You'd see signs for everything from cell phones to American goods and things like that. It was just a different Coca-Cola, for example.
I forget the name of the city, but there's some city over there where they're making steel now and automobiles and so forth. And based on what I have read or heard, we've got some American companies over there, such as General Motors and so forth, but they have to enter into a partnership with the government, and General Motors only owns half of it and the government owns the other half.
That's right. Everything's in a partnership over there. That's common in a lot of places. For example, like in Beijing, because they're going to have the 2008 Olympics there, they're building so much. The skyscrapers are coming up like daily. They said the city never looks the same every 30 days. I was reading somewhere that 1/5 of the building cranes, are in Beijing itself because they're doing so much work on the city.
How was the food?
Some things were really good. Some things were just odd, and some things were not something I would ever eat again. One thing I really had a hard time with is they cut their chicken not like what we do in pieces. You know, like with the bone, they'll cut right through the bone. And one time I just picked up this thing that looked like a little round something. I didn't know what it was. I was just going to try it. And well, what it was is like a coin shape right through the chicken leg. And I sat there and ate bone and gristle with everything. And that wasn't one of the more pleasant things. But all in all, the food was pretty good. Steamed dumplings were wonderful. The noodles were wonderful. Things like that.
How were the accommodations?
Western style.
Western.
Occasionally, when you had to go to the bathroom in the city or somewhere or like a smaller restaurant, it would be a hole in the floor, pretty much, and that was different. But otherwise, it was pretty westernized, and they accommodated to us. You had to boil, like every morning, you had to boil your water because their water's not filtered and not clean like ours is. So every morning you wouldn't have a glass of ice water, you'd have tea, or when you brushed your teeth, you had to make sure it was boiled water before you used it.
And that was in hotels and so forth?
Yes, everywhere.
Everywhere.
You would not ask for ice cubes because they'd make you sick.
A lot like the English. You can't hardly get iced tea in England.
No, it's hard to, but you didn't want their ice cubes. They would definitely, it's like Mexico. You just don't use it.
Now, I understand that during your trip you made certain interesting pictures of various places and various things, and that we have the capability here of showing them. So I think we'd better show them all in the same series, but as they are shown here, you make whatever comments you want to make about them.
Okay. We'll start off with the first one. This right here is Tiananmen Square. The interesting thing about Tiananmen Square is they created in 1949, and there were people used to live there. Tore it all down and made the square. It's about 98 acres, and I have never seen so many people in my entire life. There were tens of thousands of people there. This picture doesn't really show it, but like off to the left, there's just everywhere, and that's just I think that's a mausoleum. But it was really that's one of the places we'd go when they'd take pictures of us. But Tiananmen Square is very near the Forbidden City, where the emperor used to be. And we'll keep on going. This is into the Forbidden City. It was huge. There's because everything has to do with numbers in China, and lucky numbers has to do with nines, and because nine's considered lucky. 9,999 rooms in the Forbidden City, but they count columns. 4 columns is a room, but it was amazing. You sort of see in the picture there that there are 3 doors. The emperor went through the middle door, and only the emperor, well, and his wife, when they got married, she got to go through once and never went through again. And then the right and left doors were for, I think the left door was for commoners if they needed to come in, and the right door were for diplomats and people like that. It was really beautiful on the outside. Then after we go on, this is where the emperor would sit. Forgive my pronunciation, but the Dowager Queen used to sit behind that white screen right there and tell the king or the emperor what to do. This is during in the early 1900s, tell him what to do when she controlled him, and to make sure he did what she wanted, she sat down behind there to listen to everything he said. It was pretty neat. And we'll go on. This is the Autumn Temple, or the Temple of Harvest. This is every autumn he would go there and pray to the gods. The phoenix and the dragon are all over it. It's really neat. It has the way it's placed. The round has to do with heaven, and it's on a square area, which has to do with earth. And it's quite amazing. The next picture shows one of my favorite things was the Great Wall. Truly, it's like any picture that you see of the Great Wall, you cannot get an appreciation for it because it's enormous. It is absolutely enormous, and it's along a mountain range. You can hardly, parts of it are so steep you can hardly walk up them. We went right, and where it ended, it was a little tougher. But you can go on the left, and they say you can walk right into Mongolia if you keep on going on the left. The next picture shows how big part of the wall looks. That's not the part of the wall looks just as damaged and old. It's about 600 years old. The brick part of it. There used to be a dirt mound to the wall, which is over 2,000 years old, but it's not there anymore. But it was just, the view was amazing. It amazes you that they could make all those thousands of miles of wall with that kind of capacity. The next picture shows another interesting place. This is the Summer Palace. That's where that queen kept her nephew in prison so she could control him. But this lake, I think it's 100 acres. The whole area is about 700 acres, and most of it's man-made lake, about 9 feet deep. And that hill right there is not natural. It came from the lake where they dug it out. When was that done? Oh, I think it was first built. Parts of it were first built in the 1600s, and then later on again in the 1800s because it got burned down at one time. But I believe that's right. But they made it the Summer Palace because the lake keeps it so much cooler. Because in the summer, Beijing is extremely hot because it's very near the desert.
I don't suppose anybody told you what equipment or tools were used other than manpower to...
It's all manpower, every bit of it. I think in Beijing in 1406 there were 1 million people. Itself. So China now has, I think, isn't it around 1 billion, around 1 billion people, and everything in China is manpower. For example, like at Tiananmen Square, scraping the gum off 98 acres, they had prisoners doing it, just sitting there scraping with their little scrapers on the ground. And you could tell they were prisoners because they were like ours. They were in these outfits, and there were people with guns above them, so it made it pretty obvious. But everything you do, from building the hotels, manpower. It's all about manpower because they have so many people there. They use it like you wouldn't believe. Where we'd use a backhoe or whatever to dig something, it's all manpower there, and that's how it's been for centuries or millennia. And other pictures will even show more of it because that's how they dug that. This is a Buddhist temple. It's Little Goose Pagoda, and that's where they keep a Buddhist library. I think it's about 1,300 years old, and we keep on going.
Did your translator give any indication at all as to how do I want to put it? In other words, are there many people religious there now?
That's a really good question, because in one city, his grandmother, in Xi'an, we had a guide whose grandmother was Christian, and she was in her 90s, and she had her feet bound when she was a child, but she would go to church. There's a small and growing Christian population there. There's also a Muslim population. Most of them are most of them are the government types, but they're Buddhist and things like that. They've changed some of that. It's not, they don't like it. The government doesn't like it, but it's tolerated more than it used to be. Because one city just had a Muslim quarter.
At one time, of course, it hadn't been long ago, they wouldn't allow any.
That's right.
But I was wondering about the situation now.
I think it's changed in the last 10, 15 years. Mostly, I think, in the last 10. This is a Big Goose Pagoda. It's all surrounded by a park, a beautiful park, and the Buddhist monks have actually gotten to help run it again and keep up the upkeep and things like that. It's still controlled by the government, but they're directly involved with it. And that's another, they keep their library in there. This is an example of one of the gardens. I want to say this is in Shanghai in the Yew Gardens, but I'm uncertain because I can't remember all my pictures anymore. But they have all these beautiful stones and manicured lawns and things like that. It's very nice. The next picture is this right here. Was my favorite thing by far, possibly the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. The terracotta warriors. I have never seen the like. They're about 2,000 years old, and they have probably about 6,000 to 7,000 of these terracotta warriors, like pottery. And every one of them is different. And every one of them, about 2,000 years ago, they got ransacked because they had a peasant rebellion. But every one of them is different. Every one of them had a weapon. Most of them had armor and things like that. And it took them, and it was all manpower. There would be these chariots, and the place you can see, and if it's not that you can see, if it's so big that they built aircraft hangars over these terracotta warriors to protect them because they're that large. There are so many. And they're all about human size. The most amazing thing, these things are 2,000 years old, and they're bronze, but they're chromium plated, or have chrome plating. And 1920 was the next time that people could do chrome plating with electric means. They did chrome plating through chemical means, and they don't know how they did it. And that's why some of the swords are still sharp. And like, for example, there was another thing, and I hope this shows, is this chariot right here is bronze, and it's about half to one-third size. And their forging techniques were things that people had never seen before and still haven't. The hinges on that and the way the wheels are just outstanding. It was breathtaking. The other picture, next picture, if it shows, just shows some of the horses they had. There were these chariots. They're wooden chariots, but the wooden chariots, of course, didn't last. And some of the other pictures show. I guess we can skip on to something else. But some of the other pictures show the sword. I'm uncertain if it's working, but to show the swords and things like that. And this is one city that we went, and it's called Guilin. And the interesting thing for Guilin is we went on this thing called the Lee River Tour. These caves and hills are karst topography. And Mammoth Cave is karst topography, which is limestone, dripping, the water dripping through and dissolving. And it's made by the same principle. So it was just sort of neat to see something that was that similar. We went into a cave that was a cave that I'd never seen before. It was above ground in a mountain. And it was quite beautiful, and it had stalactites and stalagmites, and it was quite astounding. But it was such a beautiful, wonderful trip.
But above ground?
Yes. It was so hot. What Mammoth Cave, is it 56 degrees? Is that what it always runs?
Right.
But it was 90. It was the hottest cave I've ever been in my life. This is another picture I think it's really pretty. That's a bamboo boat those men are on, and in the background you can see the water buffalo. And it was just amazing. But I've never seen the like. And that, of course, is my dad, and that's entry into some of the Ming tombs that we saw, and it just, I hope he gets to see this so he can show how we acted. But these were just out in the middle of this field and from this valley, where they, so like the Valley of Kings in Egypt, this was like the for the valley there.
Well, what period in history were they dominant in China?
The Ming, I know, like, for example, the man who made the terracotta warriors was Qin, who got China, brought China together, was about 2,000 years ago. I think most Ming were around 1,300 years ago. But I think I'm correct on that.
Well, have they found another place where they're buried as they are?
Like you mean like they are there in that one valley?
Yes.
No, that's one of the main. I think it has 27 tombs of that dynasty. Most of them are Ming, though. But they're not tombs; they're like burial mounds with these temples of the soul that protects them with these large stelae in front of them.
What did you learn about the educational? Are we through with the pictures? What did you learn about the educational system?
Education is mostly paid for, though it's starting to change. They're starting to have to pay more into it, but they can go on to college if they want. What you sort of got the idea of is that a lot of times, there's more chances of people going to tech schools or doing the guilds and things like that to separate them out. But a lot of people continue the education as long as we do.
Well, what percentage of the population is educated?
I think everybody can read. I think
everybody can read.
Nearly, I think, at least in the cities, the literacy rate's very, very high.
How many universities do they have? I know they have some outstanding universities, but I don't know how many.
I don't know. I'm sure in the cities there are several. I just don't know. But I think a lot of times there's a little bit of education past high school, but not very much.
Well, I understand there's only a few that really get to the university and get a higher education.
The things that have changed moving a little bit differently, some of the things that have changed is like when you go see a doctor, you have to pay them out of your pocket because they make so little money that a lot of times to make sure they get the care they need, they have to pay the doctor extra to make sure their family members taken care of like they want them to be. So things have really changed there.
You mean in addition to
the government
pays the doctor, but in addition to that,
you have to pay the doctor out of your pocket to get certain things done in the way you want them to be done.
Well, now, is the medical profession divided into specialties?
Yes, sir. They have surgeons and things like that. I didn't get to see, but I know they do. They have it broken down because I was asking somebody about their family and how they were. And they had to go see. They had to go see a cardiologist for one of their children and things like that, and they had to talk about how they really had to make an effort to make sure that their child was taken care of by this particular pediatric cardiologist.
Did you go to any doctor's office?
No, I didn't go anything like that. The only thing we went to that was sort of interesting, or was interesting, was we went to this school that's for small children. I think it was like a kindergarten, and it was sort of cute. They had music, like Christmas music for us, and this is September, October, but they don't associate it with Christmas. They was just like songs they were singing. I believe one of them was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And it was just sort of cute. And you know, some things that were just sort of interesting and showed how much of an influence America has in our TV and things. And it's like the cell phones would ring, and when they'd ring, they'd be like Christmas songs all the time, or like the New Year's song and things like that. It was just sort of neat to hear these things all around us like that. And the dichotomy of the area was, you know, you'd look over at one person and they'd be holding their cell phone. Then you look over and this person would be pulling a wagon, you know, or it was just, you know, this. You see these extremely modern things and these extremely primitive things. You know, and then things that just amaze you is like in Beijing, there are 13 million people, and there are 10 million bicycles, and then on the roads, pedestrians do not have the right of way. On the road, you had to watch out for bicyclists, these tripod things, these pulled carts, and cars, and it was quite the experience just across the street.
How many cars? Many, or?
It's more than it used to be. Much more than it used to be. They just don't have. They just don't have the ability to handle what they have, because it's like Shanghai was like 16 million people. Beijing was 13 million. Xi'an was like 6 million, and the small city, Guilin, was 600,000. I don't think. You know, here you go in a city and they have more people. You know, a small city has more people than any city in Kentucky, just about. I think Louisville might be. You know, it's near Louisville.
Amazing.
It is amazing, and you'd go in these areas and they had these huge high rises, and you know, and every room would be full, and it's really hard to find room. You know, they'd have these courtyards of people, and where people, like one family would live in a courtyard, you know, before the Revolution, but very few courtyards are like that anymore. Most of them are 6 to 9 families. You know, you might, and when you go, we went to this one area called Hutong, which is in Beijing, and has to do with a well, and water well, and it has to do with from Mongolian times, and they'd have these courtyards and all these families. In these courtyards, they'd have everything you can possibly imagine, from chickens and trees with fruit trees and things like that, and little gardens, just so they could have extra.
Well, what about the houses, the housing?
It was crowded, very crowded. Like in Shanghai, I have never. It was like going to a UK game when you're trying to go. Everybody's trying to come out at once. You know how crowded that is. Well, that's how it is constantly. I mean, I was walking down this alley, and there was no room. There's nowhere to go. You just move with the crowd.
Well, are the people living in high rises, or some have?
They're mostly high rises.
Do some have individual homes?
There's a few individual homes, but not very many. I think there's more now because they've more capitalism and more people have. You know, when you have capitalism, you can change
Yes.
the economy, and people have and have not, but it's not as regulated as it used to be. In this area, in these areas,
I wonder how they get permission to build.
I'm sure it's very tough to. You don't build houses; you buy areas. Like I'm sure they have to buy people out of the courtyard. Like for example, the guide said that when she was first moved to Beijing, she had a one-bedroom. She lived in this house and had one bedroom and barely enough room for her bed, and she had to share a kitchen and bathroom. Her friends, she was lucky because she didn't have to share a bathroom for very many people. But there's some areas like in parts of Beijing where you have a community bathroom and showers and things like that for 80 people that you had to share. And you had to get up very early in the morning to be able to get time to get in the shower or to go to the bathroom and get ready for work. She said when she lived in this one area and they had a very small bathroom and they had to take turns washing their hair and stuff like that. And people would get mad at her if she took too long because there were so many people in one little area.
Well, I gather from what you said a while ago, the sanitation system is very poor, even in the cities.
It's not obvious, but you know it is because if you can't drink the water, you know it's just not taken care of like it is. So, they do things that we wouldn't allow. They use human waste as fertilizer. So you have to be really careful about fruits and vegetables. You have to make sure I'm very careful about what I eat. And they say don't eat a lot of vegetables unless they've been cooked. And if you eat fruit, it needs to be peeled, just because it's contaminated. But they're doing some things like China wants to make itself more accessible. For example, one thing they did that I couldn't, it just shows how strong the government can be when it's communist, not necessarily in a good way, but in Xi'an where the terracotta warriors were, they had a problem with people getting robbed at knife point. And the tourist getting robbed was the same as if a Chinese person got robbed. Well, the guides, tour groups called in and said, if you don't stop these robberies, we're not coming anymore. So what they did is they changed the penalty for robbing a tourist to the death penalty. And it didn't change for the Chinese people, but it changed for that. And all of a sudden, the crime rate dropped down to nothing because they did something. But it's just a different. But there's no. You don't know if they punish the innocent or the guilty. They just do things differently.
I don't guess you learned anything in such a short time or from the interpreter about the judicial system.
No, I didn't learn anything about the judicial system. I didn't. That's a good question, though. I didn't, but I think I wouldn't even hazard a guess, to tell you the truth.
Many people smoking?
A huge rate of smoking in China. I think 60 to 70. Read somewhere 60 to 70% of men smoke.
Any of the women smoke?
I saw a few, but a lot of men smoking. A lot. Very. They're having a problem with how many people smoke, but that's why a lot of American tobacco's been trying to get in that market.
That's the reason I asked the question.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You can tell.
Did your translator tell you anything about longevity? I read somewhere that the longevity in China now is 80 years, and I couldn't believe it.
No, I didn't. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Their diet, except for now where their diet is worsening because every corner you turn there's a KFC or a McDonald's like in Beijing and Shanghai. But their diet is very, very simple. Chicken, fish, rice.
What about the farming? it been changed any with any machinery at all, as far as you know, or?
Well, when we went to Xi'an, they're starting. You can see, you'll occasionally see a tractor, but there are a lot of people working out there. They do things. Xi'an's in a mountain, in a valley, and surrounded by mountains on three sides, and they burn their corn stalks, and it's just like this blanket of cloud, of smoky cloud above the city, and it's extremely polluted there. It's probably, they say it's like smoking a pack to 2 packs of cigarettes a day, just because of all the burning they do. Because it's like LA or somewhere like that. It's very, very polluted. But again, it's manual labor is the way they do things still, and even on that. 'Cause you'd look down at the field and there'd be people just with our hoe hoeing the ground.
Is most of the country polluted?
I think they have a definite pollution problem. They're not only are they having a pollution, like Xi'an, where they're having a pollution problem because they're increasing their cars, they're burning all that. They're, instead of composting, they're burning, and it's telling. And the cities are pretty dirty. Like Beijing, the desert gets closer and closer every year because they're cutting down all their forest for the cities. So the desert keeps on moving in. What you notice is, that's one thing the guide talked about, is how dusty it is. That she has to dust every day because they have dust storms in Beijing now because the desert's getting so close. And in the summer, they say not even to come to Beijing because it's so hot and dusty.
I gather, then, from what you say, that there is little or no emphasis on protecting the environment.
There's none as of now, that I could tell. I'm sure they're going to have something they're going to have to think about. Because, for example, Three Rivers, where they're building the Three River Dam. The only reason they haven't flooded that area yet is the tourism has just gone through the roof for them, and there because people want to see it before it's gone. But they're just moving people out, and there's no real emphasis on the environment there.
Did you go there?
No, I didn't get to go there. Maybe next time.
Oh, you want to go back?
Oh, I definitely want to go back. It's an amazing country.
Well, what amazed you the most, the people or the culture, or what about the culture? We haven't said anything about the culture yet. That's
why I want to go back again, because I don't think I got more of a feel for the country and the environment. I really didn't get a feel for the culture, and I think the best way for me to get a feel for the culture is to go back and see it, and not in a tour group. I would do a little bit more on my own. I wasn't very brave on this first time. I wanted to get some idea of what I was getting into and what to expect, but I would like to get a better idea of their culture. They're very family-oriented people. What I did see, when they referred to their children as the little emperors and empresses, because their children are so dear to them, and you can tell how dear they are to them because you can just see how they interact with their children, how much they care for them.
Well, now that raises brings up another subject. They're attempting to control population.
Yes.
What did you hear about that and so forth?
Well, I've had experiences with Chinese people, and this is not one with Chinese people in Lexington. Abortion's very common in China, very common, but it's not something they talk about very often. But they want you to have one. They really, truly want you to have one. And when they discourage it by taxing and fines for having more than one. And so they really try to push it for you not to. It's sort of, being an OBGYN, you notice these things. I did not see very many pregnant women. I saw few. I was very surprised how few pregnant women I saw. And in all these big cities, I would have thought would have seen more, and I could count on my two hands how many pregnant ladies I saw.
You might starve to death over there then in your profession.
I wouldn't do very well.
Well, as I understand it, they want the male population and not the female.
That's one of the things that's one thing that was asked about for the guide is about that, and she said it's not as strong as it used to be, but she says in the cities it's not that way as much, but in the provinces it is stronger on wanting males versus females, just because in the provinces there's a lot of farming communities and they want somebody to help them in the farming. But I did know, I don't, this is just what I saw, but like at the kindergarten we saw, there were many more boys than there were girls. Many more. Maybe 5 to 1 difference, it seemed to me, from what I saw. Maybe not quite that much, but there wasn't half and half boys and half and girls. I know that.
Well, now getting back to the kindergarten, what were they teaching there, if you could tell, or what did the translator tell you?
I think it looked a lot like our kindergarten. There were a lot of coloring and things like that, and you'd see them out in the little courtyard doing exercises and things like that, and singing songs.
About how old were they?
Look, from 5 to 7.
That's the same as here.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about cars a while ago. Are the cars that are there, are most of them made in China, or are they imported cars?
You'd see a few that were from other countries, but mostly they were from China.
Most of them are made in China.
Mm-hmm. I am blanking on the brand. There's a certain type that's made in China, and that's what you see mostly. But you'd see a BMW here and there. There was one hotel we were staying that right across the street was Rolls Royces, so they're there. The taxes on cars is much higher. It's 3 times. Or 2 to 3 times. I think a $30,000 car here would cost $60,000 to $90,000 there. I mean, it was a huge difference.
Well, what's the currency ratio between
when we were there,
Chinese and money and American dollar?
When we were there, it was 7 yuan to the dollar, so about 12 cents to the 12. Each yuan was about 12 cents or so.
Now, as far as prices were concerned, how did they compare with this country? Much cheaper, or?
Oh, everything was much cheaper. Like, for example, a taxi ride across the city was 75 cents.
In American money?
Yes, in American money. You'd go, one night we went to a Muslim restaurant, and I had this huge meal, and it was like $2 a person. So it's expensive to get there, but once you get there, it's very cheap. Very cheap. And there's some pretty things there that you could get there, like the jade horse that you couldn't buy in this country. That you could buy silk there for really cheap prices, and pearls and porcelain and that lacquered.
Were they in separate shops that?
Yeah, a lot of, like the jade horse was from a place where all they did was jade, but it was state-owned. When we went to a store, like the silk store, the jade store, the lacquer store, and the store with the pearls, it was all state-run and owned. But this right here, for example, one thing I noticed, they had people carving this jade horse, and there's all this fine dust. Nobody wore any eye protection. Nobody wore a mask. Nothing to protect them. Nothing to protect their fingers or anything.
Now you spoke of silk. Did you see any silkworms?
Yeah, they did have some silkworms for us. That was one of the most interesting things to see. They have silk. You couldn't even see these ladies would pull these silk threads off these worms, and you couldn't see them till you just, inches from them because they're that fine. One of the interesting things about it, silkworms sometimes can be in 2s and 3s. You can't use those. You can use them for those silk blankets that you stretch. They stretched it out, but for making silk, like silk scarves or whatever, you can only use one at a time because they can't unravel the 2 or 3. They can only unravel the 1. It was quite amazing. The devices they were using were unbelievable because they were just so fine. They even eat the silkworms, though. That was sort of different. They don't waste anything.
Well, now, you're talking about silk scarves and so forth. The people that make them, do they raise their own silkworms, or are they silkworm farms, or how do they get their silk?
They're silkworm farms. And they'd bring in the cocoons and then they'd do them there. But the silkworms were the silkworms were raised in different places. They had examples of the silkworms there, but the silkworms were done elsewhere and brought in.
Everything, I suppose, that what I would call ornament shops and so forth is handmade.
Mostly.
And made in the shop?
Like that, the horse was made right there. I'm sure you could have watched them from start to finish. The lacquer, you'd go and you could watch them from start to finish. Some of that stuff took years and years, though. And from the porcelain they made, you could watch.
Well, did you watch them working on this horse?
Not this particular one. I saw them working on some other ones like it.
How old were the artists? And I realized
from anywhere from 20 to 50, I guess. They were all ages, men and women.
I was just wondering how much training they had to have to be able to do the work that they do as an artist, and it shows up in that horse.
I think some of them had been doing it since they were children, is what I got the idea of. They'd been doing that from that family. They'd been taught by a family or been given by the family had sent them to learn those particular things.
What about the scenery? We talked about the mountains and the wall and so forth, but in the desert. But were you in any part of China where they still have a lot of green?
The one picture that we saw that showed those mountain ranges in the karst topography, and on that Lee River, there was nobody there. I mean, that was still totally green. I think there were then, like when driving into Xi'an, there'd be just huge expanses of farmland. One area that was Xi'an was really interesting is, you could see where they dug out areas, and it'd be 30 feet of just dirt, that yellow dirt they have, and nothing else, no rocks or anything. And that's a lot of reasons why they only use brick and wood for a lot of their construction in those areas. But yeah, you'd go by huge expansions of areas with very few people.
What farm products do they
have? Of course, I saw rice and corn, soybeans, and what else did we see? Wheat, and didn't see a lot of or you'd see in the smaller areas in front of the homes, you'd see pigs and chickens.
Well,
of course, that's where the flu starts, but because of that mix, but that's a different story.
For instance, if they're raising corn, what size field would it be in?
Oh my gosh, it'd just go on for miles. It's huge. I mean, that where I was talking about that area Xi'an, that valley, you couldn't see the end of it. I mean, I guess it ended where you saw the mountains. It just go on and on and on. Of course, it was so smoky you couldn't see, but you knew there was nothing else there till you got to the city.
Well, how did they divide the fields? Have a cornfield here and so forth. Did they do it? How did they mark them off, or did they mark them off?
They were that's a good. They were sort of marked off. In one area had like a stream bed going through it, and is marked off. And then some areas would just have a mound of dirt that mark them off. I think people would work areas, or families would work areas from an acre to acre or so, acre or two, but never much more than that. Everything, all the farmland stayed owned.
And all of this agriculture was done by hand, principally?
Mostly, it looked like.
Did you see any tractors there?
Yes, I saw some, but not like what you see here.
Well, do they use any animals?
But water buffalo in Guilin, which are going into Guilin, where the river valley was, they did use water buffalo, because you saw them with the real rings in their nose and people walking them. So for the rights, I suspect. But I didn't see many. You don't see cattle like you did here. Sometimes you'd see a small herd of water buffalo or goats or something, but nothing like what we have here. I think part of the reason is, and I talked with my dad. My dad's he has a beef farm, and cattle are wasteful, and that's probably part of it.
Well, what about milk? Can you get milk over there?
Oh my gosh!
I'm sure you can get goat milk.
Soy milk was the big thing.
Soy milk.
Yeah, they don't. I didn't see very much on cheese or milk or anything, but a lot of soy milk. Soy milk was something of an acquired taste. Definitely an acquired taste. It's very sweet and very different. I don't know if it tastes. I never really drank soy milk here, but I don't know if it's the same or not.
I guess that since McDonald's is there, they have a lot of soy burgers and probably not ground beef.
They probably have both. McDonald's is very particular about that. But I think even the guides would say, like KFC is extremely popular there. It seems weird for knowing that KFC started in Kentucky and even been to the original place to see how. I think like in Beijing they had like 80 KFCs or something like that. It was just enormous. Because people, they like that. We just sort of they like that. I never went in the McDonald's there. There was other things to try. We went to a fast food Chinese restaurant and had noodles or something. That was just sort of fun.
Were the noodles good?
Oh yeah, they were really good. They were rice noodles. They were really good.
So you enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy eating them. One of the neat things we had to eat there was these dumplings, and they'd have every kind of dumpling you can possibly imagine, and they make them almost like artwork. Like one was like, I think one was like chicken, and it looked like a little chicken, and one was a mushroom, and it looked like a little mushroom, and it's just sort of cute how they shaped them to look like the things you were going to eat.
What about public transportation?
Everything you can possibly imagine. From buses to cars to bicycles to these tri-motor things to these carts where you pull along with a bicycle. It was people would drive on the sidewalks, drive down one-way streets. Taxis. I've never been so scared in a taxi in my entire life. He would fly and we'd go down one-way streets, down sidewalks. It was quite the scary experience. I'm sure it must be like somebody.
And rail lines.
There are. We didn't see any of them.
You didn't see any rail lines, or?
I'm sure they do.
Well, do they have commercial flights within China?
Yes, they do. We would, from city to city, we'd take just Airbuses from city to city, and they were really nice planes. However, I heard I don't know if it's true or not, I heard that they have a not so good record, but they were nice planes and we got where we wanted safely, which is important.
How large? How many seats is the roof?
They were huge.
Huge.
3.7 or 3.5 and 3 seats, and then just huge planes like what you'd see, and every seat would be taken.
Newspapers.
Yes. CNN, we even had CNN, but it's controlled. I think it's on the time.
Do the people as a whole have access to CNN?
I think they do. We did. It was in all the hotels, but I'm not certain. But it's all in English. But I do know I believe everything was on a time delay, is what I understood from the guide. As for newspapers, we looked. We didn't see very many in English. There was very few. I didn't, you don't.
Yeah, but were there a lot in Chinese?
Yes, but they'll tell you it's propaganda. A lot of it's propaganda. It's very controlled. There used to, you'd see some internet cafes, but they've been held back a lot since some of the changes.
Well, as far as you could tell, and I don't imagine you saw much of it, but do the Chinese, the more educated one, really read newspapers, or do they realize that it's propaganda and just forget about them?
I think they really read them. I think that they have a lot of information. I think a lot of people just have to take the information you can obtain. But I think it's hard to say. The guides knew that a lot, like the TV stations and the radio stations were very controlled, and they would say it. But I'm sure our guides were very educated.
I would assume that the average Chinese would not have a television set.
No, I think most people did have a television set, at least in the cities.
In the cities,
Because you'd see small televisions here and there. And we went in one house in this courtyard, and she had a television. It was just a small little television. But I did see TVs and radios. And a ton of cell phones.
Beg your pardon?
Cell phones everywhere.
As far as the television was concerned, did they have regular programs, or did they have any regular programs?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Did you watch any television at all?
Oh, I do know. Yes, they did have regular programs, and they were all in Chinese, and couldn't understand a word. And they'd have. I take that back, because in the rooms you'd only have the only thing I got to watch is CNN, because that's the only thing. Occasionally you find mostly it was just CNN, and then you turn stations and you'd find some news things and what looked like soap operas and sports. But it looked like soap operas. It really truly did. The way they just had that feel.
Well, we've got about a minute left here. Anything you'd like to cover that we haven't covered?
I would tell anybody if they have the time, I would go to China. It's really hard to express, and especially even in the pictures, you really can't get an idea of how amazing a country it is and how much history it has. When you walk into a building and it's 1,300 years old, or you see these, like the terracotta warriors that are 2,000 years old, and it just, mind-boggling, especially when, here when something's 100, 150 years old, it's considered really old. And it just gives you an appreciation for different areas and how lucky we are in this country, that we have the freedoms that we do.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I appreciate your agreeing to do this program. I think you have added to the understanding of China here in Glasgow.
I hope so, and I appreciate you asking me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.